Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a blessed and beautiful day today. So, we're going to do a few more articles today, and I promise we will get back to regularly scheduled programs with Bible readings and whatnot. But there's been so much that's popped up in the last few days that I just feel led to share it with you, and so that's what we're going to do today. So this first article is about something here in Washington State, and our governor here in the state is a tyrant, and he's trying to really put a stronghold on Washington State. And so he put us in phases, phase 1, 2, and 3, I believe. Maybe there's 4. So phase 2, he's trying to open restaurants, okay? And he's already started the track and trace program, which I will read part of his interview from yesterday, which is just eye-opening and mouth-dropping. But this is part of the restaurants being open, and this goes for all of Washington State. So it says that there's a requirement for the restaurants here in the United States, in Washington, and it's that they will need to track diners for info as reopening requirements. The plan, which includes logging time of arrival, their emails, and their phone numbers, is meant to facilitate contact tracing. On Monday night, Governor Jay Inslee released a list of detailed guidelines that restaurants must adopt before resuming dine-in service during Phase 2 of Washington's reopening plan during COVID-19 pandemic. As announced previously, dining rooms can reopen at 50% capacity in this phase, with no more than 5 people at a table, but now there are several other strict requirements, including eliminating bar seating, distributing single-use menus, and logging diners' personal info to facilitate contact tracing, a rigorous method of tracking and monitoring those who may have been exposed to the novel coronavirus. That last requirement is one that perhaps may generate the most discussion. According to the state's Phase 2 playbook, restaurants that offer table service must plan to keep a daily log of phone numbers, emails, and arrival times for everybody who comes in to eat. Diners are already used to giving restaurants such details to make a reservation, but Washington rules state that all customers must be logged, not just one per party. So let's say you have 5 people in your party. Each person in your party must give this information. It's not like it used to be where, you have just, your first name on the reservation. It's also unclear how exactly the information will be handled, distributed, or purged when not needed anymore. But on Tuesday, Governor Inslee held a press conference detailing the state's robust contact tracing plan, which he said would be key to mitigating the spread of COVID-19, and addressed some concerns over privacy. He said that Washington would have the legal authority, here we go, Washington would have the legal authority to prevent any data collected from restaurants from being used for purposes other than contact tracing. We would monitor it. We would audit it, Inslee said, adding that he's still working with the leaders in the restaurant industry on coming up with a set of protocols that makes sense. It's very important for us to maintain privacy in this entire endeavor. But we know that that's not true because they are planning on using these names and addresses for contact tracing to give to the Board of Health and to the health minister and everybody in the CDC and all of this stuff. So it's not private. It's not just like the restaurant, is going to be the only one that has this information. They are going to have to turn this information over to somebody. If you think that, you're just giving your name and your phone number and your address and all of your your eye color and your hair color. I mean, I'm just joking about that part. But if you're giving all this information over to this restaurant and they're just going to log it and just throw it away, that's not happening. They are going to have to turn this stuff in, because how are they going to track and trace somebody if they don't turn it into somebody, right? So it's not going to be private. All right, it says, it won't take long before these guidelines translate to action. 8 rural counties in Washington have already begun and been approved to enter phase 2 faster than other parts of the state. And so once restaurants in those counties can provide documentation to the state on compliance for these measures, they should be good to go. Other areas, including Seattle, are likely still a few weeks away, provided that coronavirus cases, transmission, and hospitalizations continue to trend in the right direction. To date, there have been only 7,068 cases in King County with 506 deaths. Though the disease is spreading much slower than before in the Seattle region, one recent report shows that the rate of transmission is no longer falling and could in fact be rising again. Local officials warn that cases in Western Washington can be expected to plateau or increase if the trend continues, which makes social distancing crucial. It's unclear when Seattle restaurants may enter phase 2 given this data, but it is unlikely to happen before June at the earliest. Whenever restaurants do reopen for dine-in services, those who have been following the protocols surrounding COVID-19 may not be completely surprised by the new rules, and Washington isn't the first to institute logging requirements for restaurants. Maine has its own set of reopening guidelines and asks restaurants to maintain customer records for contact tracing, and cities such as Austin and New Orleans have announced similar plans. Still, restaurants that don't have computerized systems may be left scrambling to figure things out in an odd manner. And it's notable that counter service restaurants with no table service would appear to be exempt to the daily logging rule, according to the regulations. All this doesn't even factor in the challenges of adhering to the other safety requirements listed by the state. While some seem to be relatively standard now, such as providing hand sanitizer near entry of the restaurant, others may take a little more planning. Restaurants will need a space for tables that can fit 6 feet away from each other or have physical barriers separating them, which might be tricky for smaller restaurants in the city. Employers must also provide mask coverings for staff, but with personal protection equipment, or PPE, is in short supply. It's unclear what the cost of logistics of that would be. Meanwhile, the state recommends that customers wear cloth face coverings in restaurants. How are you going to eat with a cloth face covering, right? You have to take your mask off. So that just blows that out of the water. This doesn't even make sense. Okay, so it says, meanwhile, and the state recommends the customers wear face coverings at restaurants, and in King County, restaurants can turn diners away for not wearing face masks, but diners don't need to wear masks while seated at their tables. So what's the point? That doesn't make sense at all. But the city chefs and owners are already a bit wary of reopening under restrictions and conditions, such as 50% capacity. Melissa Miranda of the Beacon Hill Filipino restaurant has said she will not reopen for dine-in services right away, but rather continue her newly launched takeout service. Star chef Shota Nakajima says his Japanese spot is too awkward to try to reopen at 50% with the right kind of service expected and not lose money. All right, so let's see here. Here's a phase 2 thing I want to read just a second. Okay, and then this article is a few years old, but this is the first time I'm seeing it, and somebody shared it on Twitter today and then also on Instagram, and so I thought I would look into it. And it says the House passes bill to microchip citizens with mental disabilities. When I looked at the bill, they are trying to put it under the disguise of Alzheimer patients, dementia patients, and children with mental disabilities. So this article, this is from zerohedge.com. It says, we've all been warned that this is coming, but Max Slavo notes, what is disturbing is that while technology surrounds us and some have concerns about privacy, most shrug at the massive amounts of data they are collecting about our lives and the incredible level of control the system now has over each individual. This bill passed, okay? This is not something that is in Congress. This bill passed. Clinging to the broadest base of good intentions that it could muster, i.e. caring for those with disabilities and declining age. But in reality, it is a nose under the tent for a system that needs the ability to microchip people and to force cooperation on the part of the general population. In effect, everyone is now under their thumb with this because anyone could, I think he misspelled some stuff. It says because anyone, it should say who doesn't go along with the mass conditioning will be labeled mentally ill and branded with a track and control chip. At the first sign of suspicious behavior or troubling social media profile or a misunderstanding during an encounter, police and medical personnel, among others, will have the authority to declare someone mentally disabled or incapacitated or temporarily insane or unsound of mind, or whatever the label that they want to use at the time. Just because they express discontent, anger, or outrage at the state of the world or political affairs, fake news journalists can be shut down, and conspiracy-minded individuals can be controlled, and of course it will be abused. The tactics used against parents by CPS will be forged together with the creepy total surveillance of the fusion centers, potentially a very nasty police state. And then it says, this really just happened. House passed bill allowing government to microchip citizens with mental disabilities. Though the bill only targets those with conditions such as Alzheimer's and autism, critics say the bill's passage will only open Pandora's box of invasive government surveillance. 6 years ago, this article was in 2017, so 6 years before that, NBC Nightly News bold predicted that all Americans would be fitted with an RFID chip by the year 2017. Though at the time NBC's prediction seemed far-fetched, the House recently passed a bill that would bring a microchipped populace closer to reality before year's end. Last Thursday, the House passed H.R. 4919, also known as the Kevin and Avantes Law, which would allow the U.S. Attorney General to award grants to law enforcement for the creation and operation of locative tracking technology programs. Though the program's mission is to find individuals with forms of dementia or children with developmental disabilities who have wandered from safe environments, it provides no restriction on the tracking program inclusion of other individuals. The bill would also require the Attorney General to work with Secretary of Health and Human Services and unnamed health organizations to establish the best practices for the use of the tracking devices. Those in support of the legalization maintain that such programs could prevent tragedies where those with mental or cognitive disabilities wandered into dangerous circumstances. Yet others have called these good intentions a Trojan horse for the expansion of North American police state as the bill's language could be very broadly interpreted. The bill states, while this initiative may have noble intentions, small and temporary programs in the name of safety and security often evolve into permanent and enlarged bureaucracies that infringe on American freedoms. Oh, I guess this is somebody talking. That is exactly what we have here. A safety problem exists for people with Alzheimer's, autism, and other mental issues. So the fix, we are told, is to have the Department of Justice start tracking programs so we can use some device or method to track these individuals 24 hours a day. He's a Republican from Texas. He was a representative, Louis Gohmert, Republican from Texas. Gohmert's assessment is spot on. Giving local police the authority to decide who is microchipped and who is not based on their mental soundness is a recipe for disaster. Though the bill specifically mentions those with Alzheimer's and autism, how long before these tracking programs are extended to those with ADHD or bipolar disorder, among other officially recognized disorders? Even the dislike of authority is considered a mental disorder known as oppositional defiant disorder, which could also warrant microchipping in the future. If these programs expand unchecked, how long will it be before all Americans are told that mass microchipping is necessary so that law enforcement and the government can better protect them? Aren't we there right now? Aren't we there right now? Holy smokes. Many Americans have been content to trade their liberties for increased security in the post 9/11 world, particularly when the state uses these talking points. Yet, as Benjamin Franklin once said, those who surrender freedom for security will not have, nor do they deserve, either one. Are we not there right now? Oh my goodness gracious. This, let's see here. This was in December of 2016, this article. And then we have, just today, we have President Trump announcing that he is mobilizing the United States military. Let me get on here really quick. I thought I had it. Oh, here we go. Okay, here we go. This is on Now the End Begins and says, President Trump now says he is mobilizing the United States military to distribute COVID-19 vaccine when ready. Will it also be mandatory? Okay, he says, President Trump says, we're mobilizing our military and other forces, but we're mobilizing our military on the basis that we do have a vaccine. You know, it's a massive job to give this vaccine. Our military is now being mobilized, so at the end of the year, we're going to be able to give it to a lot of people very, very rapidly, the president said. We will have a tremendous force because assuming we get it, then you have to distribute it, he added. And unless you're mobilized and ready, you're not going to be able to do it for a long time. So we are starting now. President Trump says he would rapidly mobilize the U.S. military to distribute a COVID-19 coronavirus vaccine once it's ready, focusing first on nursing homes and the elderly most vulnerable to deadly complications from the virus. We live in a time of crisis, the likes of which the world has never seen, and with each passing day comes further confusion and disorientation about what happens next. As we previously reported, President Trump has gone from being a staunch anti-vaxxer to being a COVID-19 vaccination cheerleader. Now today he told Fox News that he is mobilizing the U.S. military to distribute the COVID-19 vaccine when it is ready, probably by the end of the year. Vaccinations at the point of a gun, possibly. It says, yep, looks like that's where we are at the moment. Why would you need the military to distribute vaccines? We are entering a new phase of life here. We are entering the new phase of a military state. Martial law, possibly. Okay, and then it says, for legal reasons, I cannot tell you what you should do about receiving a COVID vaccine shot. but I sure can tell you what I will do. Under no circumstances, nor at any time, will I receive a COVID-19 vaccine shot from any entity, be it public, private, or President Trump. Not even the assembled might of the United States military could compel me to do that. I have told you all many, many times now that Bill Gates is one of the major players, but he is not the only player. Don't have your eyes on any one person or you'll miss it. It's a system, and it's a global system. From CBS News, it says, we're mobilizing our military and other forces, but we're mobilizing our military on the basis that we do have a vaccine. And then he said this, what he said. Okay. We will have a tremendous force because assuming we will get it, then you have to distribute it, he added. And unless you're mobilized and ready, you're not going to be able to do it for a long time, so we're starting now. The president said he expects a vaccine to be available by the end of the year, a very optimistic timeline given that many experts, including COVID task force members Dr. Anthony Fauci, says it will take at least 12 to 18 months. The virus has killed more than 84,000 Americans so far as states begin to reopen their economies. The president indicated he expects that number to continue to climb. We will lose over 100,000 people perhaps in this country, the president said in an interview that aired on Thursday. A CBS News poll released Thursday shows 43% of Americans think the president is doing a good job handling the virus, down from 48% in April and 53% in March. Most Americans also don't trust the president for information about the virus, the poll found. Only 38% of Americans said that they do, compared to 61% who trust their governor, which I don't trust mine, and 62% trust Fauci, who's nothing but a liar. Okay, hang on. I'm going to show this to you.
We are beginning a program today, and it's a pilot program which will certainly grow into something larger and larger, and that is a community contact tracing program. We've done contact tracing all along. That a contact is a person who's been exposed to someone that we document to have the COVID infection. When we find someone who has a COVID infection, those people are immediately isolated. But we also work with them to figure out who their contacts were. Luckily, because you have been doing such a great job of cooperating and staying indoors, staying isolated, it used to be there were 10 contacts, at least, for every patient that we would find. Now, it looks like there are probably only 2 or 3 or 4 contacts, not surprisingly, because most people have been staying away from others. And that's good news. But the purpose of this program is to bring on people. We're going to start with 10 people. We may bring on up to 50 or even more as the program grows and as we see the needs for it. As we do more testing, we will find more and more people who have COVID-19. And again, we'll isolate every one of them, and we will find every one of their contacts, and we will make sure that they stay quarantined, and we'll check in with them every day. In other words, what this program means is that we're going to do a more complete job, and we're going to do a more meticulous job of making it less and less possible for others in the county to run into someone with COVID-19 infection. It's not just our county that's bringing more people on. There are going to be thousands of people hired who will be these contact investigators throughout the state. And this is occurring in many, many other states as well, perhaps all of the states in our country. We will be giving intensive training to these people, training not only for identifying and finding contacts, but also in terms of how to be sensitive about doing it. We also realize that as we find more contacts, some of the people we find are going to have trouble being isolated. For instance, if they live in a home where there's only one bathroom and there are 3 or 4 other people living there, and those people don't have COVID infection, we're not going to be able to keep the person in that home. Every person who we're isolating, for instance, needs to have their own bathroom. And so we'll be moving people like this into other kinds of housing that we have available. They'll also have other needs, perhaps, food, whatever it's going to be. The county will be there to back them up and to support them.
Okay, I want to read also an article that came in later this evening, and this is from Minot, North Dakota. And it says, 1st District Health Unit said they will begin to use their power to enforce quarantines after one man who had been in contact with someone with the virus refused to self-isolate and check in. Anyone who is contacted by 1st District and does not comply with the self-check-in protocol could be held in jail for 30 days and charged with a $1,500 fine. We are working hard on the contact tracing. We are working day and night, weekends to contact them, but sometimes we are not successful and we can use the force of law, and on occasion we are having to do that, said Lisa Clute, executive officer at 1st District Health Unit. Okay, then it says individuals not cooperating with contact tracing. 1st District Health Unit Director Lisa Clute says the health unit has run into trouble with individuals in close contact with COVID-19 positive people not cooperating with health officials. Clute says so far 3 individuals have been uncooperative with the contact tracing process, but she did not release which community these individuals were from. The issue with one of the individuals was resolved last night. One was not able to be reached, and the other has refused to monitor and self-report symptoms. Clute says if these individuals are not cooperating with contact tracing, there is a chance they may not be self-isolating and may be out in the community and spreading the virus. She feels it's important for the public to know that this is a possibility. Clute reminded the public that state guidelines allow for local authorities to involve law enforcement to require compliance, something she says they plan to pursue. Okay. Clute says failure to comply with contact tracing is Class B misdemeanor, punishable by up to 30 days in jail and up to a $1,500 fine. Okay, now we're going to move on to another story of a woman in New York who was wearing a mask, but she wasn't wearing it over her nose and her mouth. There's a video I'm also going to show you after this of her so you can see the situation. But I want to read for you the article that went with this. Anyways, the cops of New York brutally attacked her, and she did not touch them. She did not do anything until after they touched her and were like pushing her, and she had her little boy with her, and they ultimately arrested her for what they said is she's not wearing her mask properly. So I'm going to read for you this article, and then also I don't remember if it said it in here, but the mayor of this particular town, he never responded, or I should say he sided with the police in this matter. And instead he said that wearing a mask is not optional. So he basically sided with them on the way that they handled this situation. So I'm going to read this for you. It says, New York, as cops across the country publicly state that they are not going to enforce tyrannical orders from their governors that violate the rights of citizens, the NYPD seems to be doing just the opposite. Video after video continue to pour out of the state showing how far cops are willing to go to enforce social distancing. On Wednesday night, a video was uploaded to Twitter showing NYPD cops attacking a mother in front of her young child over a confrontation for improperly wearing her face mask. The assault and arrest of this woman, she's 22 years old, was recorded by a witness and unfolded about 11:50 a.m. inside of the subway station when police told her that she was wearing her face mask improperly, police said. Police said this woman, who was with a young child at the time, refused to correctly wear the covering and swore, so she cursed at them. As the video shows, this woman is merely trying to walk away from the police, who devoted a small team of cops to her for not wearing her face mask properly. As she attempts to walk out of the subway station, she is seen in the video telling the cops, don't touch me," before pushing the cop's hand out of her face. And in the video, it goes very quickly, but you can see that the police officer kind of jabs at her chest or is in her face or something. This was the straw that broke the police brutality camel's back. Seconds later, a half a dozen cops swarmed the mother, pulling the young child out of the way before slamming her to the ground. "Come on, she's got a kid with her," a bystander could be heard saying on the video. "She's got a baby with her. That's too much." Officers then forced the woman to the ground and handcuffed her. The individual was arrested only after her behavior towards officers warranted police action, said the NYPD spokesman. As Newsweek reports, the NYPD confirmed the stop was over the woman's choice to wear the mask wrong. That's why they arrested her, because of her choice to wear the mask wrong. In a statement sent to Newsweek, an NYPD spokesperson said the altercation took place around 11:50 a.m. on Wednesday at the subway station after police officers stopped the mother for not properly wearing her face mask. Face masks are required in public transit under New York rules, requiring that residents wear the coverings in public if they cannot effectively socially distance from others. She responded to the officers with vulgar language and repeatedly refused requests to properly wear the face mask covering over her mouth and her nose. She wore it kind of underneath her chin. Officers then informed her that she would be ejected from the station and began to escort her from the location. I didn't see that personally in this video, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The spokesperson claimed that when this woman pushed the officer's hand away from her face, that this is considered striking an officer. The woman then waved her arms and struck the officer with her hand, the spokesperson said. As a result of these actions, she was taken into custody and placed under arrest. When you watch the video below, you will see what a ridiculous claim this is. Nevertheless, this person was charged with resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, and harassment, the spokesperson said. She has since been released on a ticket. The NYPD is standing by the decision to arrest the mother and in front of her son, no less, claiming this woman's behavior towards officers warranted police action, and they are confident that the police officers in this incident acted appropriately and with respect. I highly doubt that. You'll see why. We disagree, and so do a lot of people, including New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, who condemned the incident, saying face coverings are important to protect everybody. They're not optional. But no one wants to see this interaction. That's not really... so this is what de Blasio said And that to me doesn't even, it's kind of like he's trying to cover his own butt, but he's not coming out strictly against the police officers for doing such things because of what he said. It's not even an apology or anything. Face coverings are important to protect everybody. They're not optional, but no one wants to see this interaction. We've made progress to de-escalate the situation, he said, referring to New York City's efforts to ensure that officers are focused on de-escalating conflicts. And then there's a Twitter comment from Bill de Blasio that says face coverings are important to protect everybody. They're not optional. And then he has the video below. Perhaps this woman was confused by governor's mandatory masks order, which is arguably a very easy mistake considering the CDC has changed their stance on the matter multiple times. There's no reason to be walking around with the mask. Infectious disease expert Anthony Fauci has told 60 Minutes in March of this year. It's voluntary and you don't have to do it, the President of the United States said wearing the mask in April. This is voluntary. I don't think I'm going to be doing it, the President said. So now I will play for you the video. The cussing words are beeped out, but I want you to see that she didn't do anything. She was trying to walk away, and you can hear, if you listen carefully, you can hear one of the police officers answering the guy that's videotaping. She's not wearing her mask properly. That is why they arrested her. It had nothing else to do with anything else. This is where we are. This is where we are in America. Okay, so let me get that video for you.
I think the only way you can do it is a couple ways. One, I'm thinking about an executive order on day one that says, in more legalese than this is not a thing. We will no longer honor this, because the way that our limited prerogative works is there's got to be compliance with the executive branch, because otherwise it doesn't work. So you got to eliminate that compliance, and you make a mandate, and then you do training, particularly in the city, I'll call them licensing departments, whether it's zoning, buildings, housing will be impacted by it, planning certainly, and you pick the people to run those agencies and the deputies that are pledging allegiance to the new world order and good governance.
Okay, so that's all I have for you today. But I want you guys to really think about, and I know that this is happening, in other parts of the world. It's becoming to the point where it's becoming mandatory in some parts of the world. They're forcing people to get vaccinated. And I'm not going to lie, I do have a little bit of a concern because my husband is in the military. And so I have a concern of, what they're going to try to force him to do. He's already said he's not getting the vaccine. So, if they try to kick him out of the military, I don't know. But usually when you're in the military, they like to tell you how they own you, and that you have to do what they say, basically. And so that's a little bit of a concern on my part, but I know that with God, all things are possible, and He is going to bring us the strength. If He doesn't bring us home, He is going to bring us the strength that we need to endure this. But, tomorrow I'm going to... Well, I should actually say today because I'm doing this kind of late. But so today I'm going to show a video. I was going to do it myself, but I think he says it better than I probably could have. And I know some people aren't going to like the fact that I post this pastor, but I want you to just listen to his words and how he explains why the pre-tribulation rapture is doctrine, and how those who say that there is no rapture or there's an end to the tribulation rapture, he explains it all. And so I want you to listen to it, and I want you to have an open mind to it, because it was it helped me a lot and trying to explain it to people. But that's the one thing that we can have the hope that to know that Jesus is coming, and that when things are beginning to creep in and the fear of what is coming, just always hold on to that and to his promises that he is not going to let us, his true church, his true body, he's not going to put us through that. The tribulation is a time of his wrath. We are not appointed to his wrath. So, and I've always said this before, Jesus, we are considered the bride of Christ. And if you say that we have to go through the entire tribulation, which is the wrath of God being poured out upon an unbelieving world, and for the salvation of the Jews, then you're saying that Jesus is an abusive husband, that he would put his bride, that he would beat up his bride before the wedding, and that he is such a condemning God that he would abuse his bride, and he's not going to do that. Those of us who have placed our faith and our trust in Jesus Christ and in what he did on the cross, we are taken out of the way. People get confused between the rapture and the second coming. They are two separate events. The rapture happens when we go to meet him in the air. The second coming is when we come with him in the air. So there's a lot of confusion. And so this pastor that I'm going to share, I'll tell you who it is. His name is Perry Stone. I don't normally listen to him, but I do listen to him on end times things and tribulation type stuff, because he's really knowledgeable about that stuff. And so I'm going to, post that. And I don't want to hear any coming against him for any of that. Like I said, I don't listen to him as far as, biblical teaching, as far, I listen to him for end times events, prophetic type stuff. And so he's really good about that type of stuff. So I'm going to leave that with you guys. And I think also I want to read the first few chapters of Revelation. so that we can read through it together and realize, like Perry Stone said, how the revelation goes in order. You can't take it out of order, because then you are putting God's promises aside. And he'll share that tomorrow. I will share what he says about that tomorrow. It goes in chronological order, and when you do that, you can prove that we are a pre-tribulation rapture, that there is a rapture there, that Satan will always try to cause fear into somebody, to believe that we're going to have to endure all of this. We're going to have to endure all of this trouble that's coming upon us. So anyways, guys, I love you, and be prepared for the next few days. Get your Bibles ready, and I will talk to you guys later.